Millionaire CEO stops by a cafe for a quick coffee, but his entire world shifts when a toddler calls him Dad, and he realizes the boy belongs to the waitress he once loved. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. A soft buzz of conversation filled the bright, modern cafe as the mid-morning crowd sipped their lattes and browsed on their phones. Stylish overhead lamps cast a warm glow onto polished tables, and the aroma of freshly ground coffee beans perfumed the air. CEO Adam Beaumont stepped through the glass doors like a force of nature, attracting looks without even trying. Tall, poised, and impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit, he exuded a quiet confidence that made people unconsciously straighten up around him. For years, Adam had kept a busy schedule, countless board meetings, flights to international summits, negotiations that could change the direction of entire markets. Yet despite his responsibilities, he made time, every Friday morning, for a visit to this unassuming cafe across town. It was a tradition going back to his youth, one that reminded him of a simpler life before the daily pressures of overseeing Beaumont innovations. Of course, nobody at his corporate headquarters fully understood why a man of his stature would travel so far for a simple cup of coffee. Adam never bothered to explain. It was an unspoken ritual that brought him a measure of peace. A wave of hushed curiosity swept over the customers as he headed toward his usual corner seat by the window. Waitstaff flashed him polite, respectful smiles. A few longtime customers recognized him from earlier visits and greeted him quietly. Adam smiled in return, polite but somewhat preoccupied. A fine tension clung to his features. Something weighed on his mind. He often buried himself in work to escape these unnamed worries, burdens that success, ironically, never could cure. Without a word, he settled into a wooden chair, the late morning sun casting a golden outline around him. He loosened his tie a fraction and checked his phone for missed calls. A new message from his CFO demanded immediate attention. Crucial matter. Call ASAP. Adam exhaled, deciding to put it off for just a moment. He needed a minute of calm before diving back into the day's chaos. Suddenly, a small giggle disrupted his thoughts. He looked up to see a curly-haired toddler weaving between tables. The little boy seemed on a mission, though Adam had no idea what that mission might be. Usually, children at the cafe stuck close to parents, nibbling on muffins or quietly coloring. This child was different, determined, wide-eyed, stumbling forward like a tiny explorer with a secret purpose. Before Adam could fully process it, the toddler launched himself at him, clinging to his leg with surprising strength. Startled, Adam nearly dropped his phone. The child tipped his head back, gazing up with bright, excited eyes. "Dad!" the boy squealed, pure joy lighting up his face. For a moment, Adam froze. He glanced around, half expecting to see someone behind him. But the cafe was silent now. Everyone stared at the bizarre scene. Millionaire CEO Adam Beaumont, who was famously private and had never been known to date seriously, suddenly confronted by a toddler calling him Dad. The child's little arms tried to climb him as if searching for a hug. Adam's heart pounded so loudly it seemed impossible no one else could hear. Was there some misunderstanding? Who was this child? He leaned down carefully. The toddler's eyes, big and green, sparked with a curious recognition. They reminded him of something, or someone, he couldn't immediately place. "Hey there," Adam managed, voice unsteady. "Are you lost?" But the child grinned, shaking his head enthusiastically. "Dad!" he repeated, certain and unwavering. A murmur spread among the bystanders, who whispered behind hands and coffee cups. The CEO of Beaumont Innovations had never mentioned kids. Were tabloids right all along? Did he have a secret love child? Adam felt the heat of their stares. Usually calm under public scrutiny, he found his composure uncharacteristically shaken. Just then, Footsteps clacked urgently against the tile floor. A waitress with tired but gentle features rushed forward. She wore a simple uniform, black slacks, a fitted shirt with the cafe's logo, and balanced a tray of cups with practiced skill. Yet in the second she spotted Adam, her entire body went rigid, as if she'd seen a ghost. "Matthew, sweetie," she murmured to the toddler in a pleading tone, carefully putting down the tray on a nearby table. "Come back here, honey, you can't just—" Her voice caught in her throat. Adam stared. It felt as if the entire cafe flickered out of existence, leaving just the two of them, Adam Beaumont and Emily Parker. She was older now, her hair pinned up, wearing well-worn shoes from hours of running around serving customers. But there was no mistaking those eyes. They were the same warm, hazel eyes he remembered from years ago, eyes that once made him believe in a future free from boardroom deals and gold-plated illusions. "Emily!" He could barely push the name past his lips. She took a shaky breath. Whatever she'd planned to say dissolved under the shock. The toddler, Matthew, still clung to Adam, proclaiming "Dad" to anyone who might listen. Emily bent down, trying to pry her son away gently, but the child refused to budge, determined to stay close to the man he'd inexplicably recognized. Customers who had been riveted by the spectacle began to whisper excitedly. They recognized the tension in the air, some drama from the past returning to claim its due. The manager, sensing trouble, approached with an apologetic expression, obviously ready to do damage control if needed, but he froze, seeing Emily's face pale with a complex swirl of emotions: guilt, longing, relief, terror. Adam's mind spun. Years ago, he'd loved Emily in a raw, all-consuming way he'd never known before or since. Back then, he was not yet the unstoppable CEO, but merely a driven young man with big dreams. Dreams that overshadowed personal attachments. They parted on difficult terms. His father had orchestrated an opportunity abroad, something Adam felt he couldn't refuse. By the time he realized he might be abandoning the one real love he'd ever known, it was too late. Now fate had apparently brought them back together, here, in the most unexpected manner. And between them stood a bright-eyed toddler, calling him Dad. Adam opened his mouth to speak. No words came. So many questions tumbled in his mind. How old was the boy? Could he really be Adam's son? Emily had never mentioned a child before, nor had she reached out asking for help. Had she resented him so much that she'd decided to raise their child alone? "Adam," Emily finally managed, her voice trembling. This is Matthew." The name rang in his ears like a bell. He looked again at the boy's face, his curly hair, his hopeful smile. A memory flashed, Emily jokingly saying if they ever had a kid he'd be unstoppable, just like his father. But that was mere pillow talk from a different life, never something they believed would truly happen. Or so he thought. "I didn't know," he breathed, a pang of hurt edging through. "You never told me." Her expression flickered from shock to sorrow. The employees, the cafe manager, even random onlookers seemed glued to the moment. There was no privacy now, yet no one wanted to break the tension. Emily tried once more to lift Matthew from Adam's side. This time, the toddler let go, but only after Adam reassured him, "It's okay, buddy, I'm not leaving." The use of the word buddy, so casual yet caring, made Emily's eyes well up. Had it been any other day, she might have swiftly escorted him out of the building to avoid a scene, but how do you hide from the man who has every right to know his own son? She stood up straight, as if summoning courage. "Matthew, sweetheart," she whispered to the child, "I want you to meet Adam." Her voice faltered, uncertain how to phrase it, whether to say "your father" or keep the introduction vague. She gave up on the explanation, stepping back. "We should talk," she said to Adam, tone subdued but firm, "but not here." Adam nodded, the weight of the moment crushing him. He beckoned discreetly to his personal assistant, a short, neat man who had remained near the door, glancing warily at the swirl of gossip. The assistant read Adam's silent instruction and stepped outside to clear the remainder of his schedule. Whatever crucial deal or phone call was waiting could hold. This matter, something he never dreamed he'd face, stood above any business priority. A hush lingered in the cafe as Emily guided Adam to a corner booth away from prying eyes, though everyone stole glances. The cafe's hum resumed in a subdued ripple, like music turned down to let drama unfold center stage. Matthew, oblivious to tension but drawn to Adam's presence, kept close. In that tense hush, Adam glimpsed the exhaustion etched on Emily's face, shadows under her eyes, the lines of worry around her mouth. She once told him she wanted to see the world, to live life outside the small corners she'd known. Yet here she was, single mother, waitress in a modest cafe. He dreaded how much guilt he would feel if everything was as he suspected. He cleared his throat, desperate to break the silence but uncertain how to proceed. "Emily," he began softly, "I need to know how this happened. Why didn't you?" Before the question could fully form, Matthew tugged at Adam's suit jacket, pointing to a little stain of jam on the lapel, the result of the toddler's earlier embrace. With wide eyes, the boy gave a shy giggle. Adam's heart twisted in an unfamiliar ache, a fierce protectiveness blossoming. But the cafe lights above flickered, reminding him that a single conversation couldn't untangle years of separation. And for the first time in his carefully orchestrated, well-managed life, Adam Beaumont had no plan. Emily inhaled, swallowing the deep well of secrets she'd guarded for so long. "I couldn't contact you," she said, voice trembling. "I thought you'd moved on, that your new life didn't have space for—" Her gaze dropped to Matthew. A swirl of questions hammered at Adam's mind. Did she truly believe he never wanted to be part of his child's life? Or had something else intervened, someone who wanted to keep them apart? Before he could probe deeper, they were interrupted by an anxious co-worker calling Emily's name. Customers' orders had piled up while all attention turned to the unexpected reunion. Emily cast Adam an apologetic glance, promising quietly, "I'll explain everything, I swear. Just stay, please." With that, she rushed off to quell the chaos in the cafe. Adam watched her go, heart racing. She had been the only woman who ever made him consider giving up the corporate race. And now, years later, she stood before him with a son who might be his. Adam leaned against the back of the booth, exhaling shakily. Meanwhile, the toddler clambered onto the seat, as comfortable as if he belonged there. A surge of tenderness overcame Adam. He combed a hand through his hair, thoughts swirling. About love lost, about second chances, and about the child who apparently had recognized him without hesitation. He didn't realize how tightly he was gripping the edge of the table until his knuckles turned white. This was no trivial scandal. It was his life, his family. Outside, city traffic roared, people going about their business. Inside, one small boy peered up at him, bright with curiosity, waiting to see what the grown-ups would decide. Adam forced a smile for Matthew's sake and touched the child's hand. "I'm not sure how," he murmured, "but I promise I'll figure this out." Unbeknownst to him, those words would become the cornerstone of a profound journey, one that would test the limits of what he believed about success, responsibility, and the possibility of redemption in a life that had long since traded sincerity for status. The next steps would involve confessions, heartbreak, and revelations of secrets carefully buried. Because behind Emily's silence loomed a world of unspoken sacrifices, and behind Adam's polished success lay regrets that never truly left him. Now, they would have to face it all. The cafe bustled around Adam, but all he could focus on was the swirl of confusion in his own mind. Beside him, young Matthew squirmed on the seat, humming some tuneless melody. Despite the lingering tension, people in the cafe pretended to return to their own business, though curious glances kept darting over. Meanwhile, Emily rushed between tables, dropping off orders and apologizing profusely to customers who kept peeking her way. Adam tried to settle Matthew with a few gentle words. "Do you like cars, buddy?" he asked, unsure how else to connect with a child who'd just called him Dad. The boy nodded vigorously, his small hand reaching into a pocket to pull out a crumpled piece of paper, an old Café flyer that he handed to Adam as if it were treasure. Adam took it solemnly, as though receiving a precious gift. A faint smile tugged at his lips. "Here, dear, I'll take him for a moment," offered one of Emily's co-workers, an older waitress with warm eyes and a motherly aura. Adam hesitated. He had no desire to let Matthew out of his sight, but he could sense the child needed space while Emily finished her shift. Reluctantly, he nodded, and the woman guided Matthew to a quieter corner where she produced some crayons and paper. Adam felt oddly bereft when Matthew's small hand slipped from his grip. It was a bewildering reaction. He'd only known the toddler for a few minutes, yet a deep, protective instinct had roared to life inside him. Shaking his head, he checked the time on his watch. Not even half an hour had passed since Matthew had first tackled him, calling him Dad. The entire day felt surreal, and the reality of it pulled at Adam's carefully maintained composure. On the other side of the cafe, Emily balanced a tray of cappuccinos, her expression drawn tight. A flush colored her cheeks each time she caught Adam's eye from across the room. He sensed she was torn, desperate to finish her duties yet yearning to explain. She placed the coffees in front of a group of women, who immediately leaned in to whisper. Emily pretended not to notice. Once she was done, she disappeared into the back kitchen, likely to gather herself. Adam took a moment to study the place. It was small but cozy, full of the everyday warmth he rarely experienced in his corporate domain. Faded photographs of local landmarks dotted the walls, and chalkboards listed daily specials. The morning light streamed in through the large windows, brightening everything with a golden hue. This cafe was so different from the pristine, high-stakes environments he frequented, where everything was curated for maximum efficiency. Here, warmth mattered more than perfection. He realized with a jolt that perhaps Emily belonged in a place like this, where she could be herself, unburdened by corporate theatrics. Still, how had her path led here, raising a child alone? A murmur of voices approached from behind the serving counter. The manager, a balding man with kind but worried eyes, and Emily were engaged in tense conversation. Adam caught bits and pieces. "Take a break. Talk. Can't keep customers waiting. Your business is your own." Emily nodded hurriedly. A few minutes later, she emerged from behind the counter, wiping her hands on her apron, and gestured for Adam to follow her to a quieter corner near the back exit. They slipped out to a narrow, secluded alley behind the cafe, boxes stacked by the door, a small patch of sky visible above the tall buildings. The faint clang of dishes and hum of the coffee machine echoed from inside. Emily exhaled shakily, hugging herself against the crisp air. "I'm sorry," she began, voice low and trembling. "I didn't expect any of this. You showing up again." "Emily." Adam spoke her name quietly, yet there was an urgency behind it. "He's mine, isn't he?" A flicker of anguish passed over her features. She glanced at the door, checking if anyone was listening, then nodded. "Yes, Matthew is your son." Adam swallowed, the words confirming what he'd already suspected. A father. He was a father. Such a life-altering piece of knowledge, yet the rest of the world continued turning as if nothing had changed. Adrenaline flooded him. "I had no idea," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "If I had known, Emily, you have to believe me. I would have been there. I would never have left you to do this alone." Her eyes brimmed with tears she refused to let fall. "I wanted to tell you," she managed, "but by the time I realized I was pregnant, you were gone. You'd left for that big overseas opportunity." Your father was the one who came to see me." She stopped, her voice choking on the memory. "My father?" Adam repeated, confusion hardening into dread. It was no secret his father was a formidable figure, a man who valued family legacy and business acquisitions above all else. But the idea that he might have actively intervened in Adam's personal affairs, especially in something this significant, made Adam's stomach coil. "What did he do?" Emily hesitated. The tension in her face was raw and real. "He told me not to contact you," she whispered. "Said it would only harm your future. He offered me money, enough that I'd never have to work again. But the condition was I had to disappear and never reveal your child. I refused the money, Adam, but I believed him when he said that if I tried to talk to you, I'd only be destroying everything you'd built." A tear slid down her cheek. "Maybe I was foolish, but I was scared. And my pride. I couldn't stand the thought of forcing you back if you didn't want me." Adam felt the blood drain from his face. He recalled the abruptness of that overseas opportunity, how it came with no notice. One day he was making plans with Emily to possibly move in together. The next, his father insisted it was now or never for Adam's career, shipping him off to Europe for months of intense training and networking. He had chalked it up to fate, or maybe just an unfortunate clash of timing. Yet now, hearing Emily's side, it appeared more orchestrated than accidental. "You should have still told me," he murmured, anguished. "I would have taken your call." She brushed the corner of her eye with the back of her hand, letting out a shaky breath. "By then, it had been almost a year. I was in the last trimester of pregnancy, struggling to pay bills, and you were in another world, promoted to executive roles, photographed at galas. I saw your picture in a magazine. You looked so successful, so out of reach, and your father had convinced me you wanted that life more than anything. Maybe he was right." The words struck Adam like a blow. He recalled those early days of success, the sense of euphoria as deals closed, press releases soared, his father praising him for growing up. But it had come at a personal cost he never fully reckoned with. He had tried to bury his regret over Emily, ignoring the ache that told him he'd lost something irreplaceable. Now, that lost something had a name and tiny hands. Matthew. Emily glanced back at the cafe door. "I have to get back soon. My shift isn't over and I can't afford to lose this job." She paused, then made a visible effort to stand straighter, summoning her last ounces of courage. "Adam, I'm not asking you for anything. I never wanted your money. Matthew is my entire life. I raised him the best I could. He's a happy, sweet child. He doesn't lack for love. But he deserves the truth. He deserves to know who his father is. If you want to be part of his life, that is." Emotion battered Adam's chest, heavier than any business negotiation he'd ever faced. I do," he replied, half choking on the confession. "I need time, but I want to be there. Let me figure out how. Let me at least help." She managed a small, grateful smile. "Okay, we'll talk more." She handed him a note with her phone number scribbled in pencil, a humble but significant gesture. "I have to finish my shift. Meet me back here at closing if you can." He nodded, carefully pocketing the note as if it were made of gold. They stepped back into the cafe. The moment they crossed the threshold, the hush settled again, curious eyes flickering over them. Emily returned to handling orders, though this time the tension in her shoulders was relieved by a faint sense of hope. Matthew, drawn by Adam's voice, rushed over. Adam scooped him up gently, ignoring the flutters of his own nervous heart. He stayed until Emily's manager signaled to him from a distance that it might be best if Adam stepped outside, away from the prying stares. Reluctantly, Adam complied, carefully setting Matthew down to follow Emily's co-worker. As Adam made his way to the exit, he looked back to see Emily watching him. Their eyes locked, an exchange brimming with words yet to be said, with apologies and lost years. Then he slipped into the bright, late-morning sun, adrenaline still coursing through him. He had a conference call in an hour, urgent matters waiting at the office. But for once in his life, business was the last thing on his mind. He had a son, a child who recognized him instantly in a crowded cafe as if pulled by fate. Adam stepped into his waiting car, fists clenched, mind reeling. He pictured Matthew's wide grin and Emily's tearful gaze. All the wealth and influence he'd amassed felt meaningless if he couldn't make this right. He punched a number into his phone, his assistant or perhaps a trusted ally, ready to set in motion a new plan, one that wasn't about market expansions or product launches, one that involved forging a bond with the boy who called him Dad. That afternoon, Adam's driver dropped him outside the gleaming Beaumont Innovations headquarters, but as he walked through the polished lobby, he barely noticed the familiar touches of corporate prestige, the minimalist decor, hushed elevator chimes, and discreet nods from staff. All he could see was Matthew's little face lighting up the cafe. Instead of taking a direct route to his office suite, he paused by a window in the hallway. From there, one could see the city skyline, a horizon Adam once believed signified his limitless potential. Now, it reminded him of what he'd overlooked. "Mr. Beaumont?" His personal assistant, Chris, approached hesitantly holding a digital tablet loaded with messages. "We've got the board waiting on a conference call, your CFO insists on a quick talk after that, and legal wants a final approval on the new contract. Also," he trailed off, sensing Adam's distraction. "Sir, is everything okay?" Adam inhaled, trying to shove aside personal turmoil. He turned toward the assistant. "Clear the non-essentials off today's agenda. Reschedule what you can." Chris, who was used to Adam's demanding schedule, blinked in astonishment. "But you have the investor meeting at 4. Reschedule it, or have my VP handle it." Adam's tone was calm but unyielding. He ran a hand down his tie as if to straighten himself. "I have urgent personal matters." The assistant nodded, eyes wide. Adam rarely delegated anything. He was known to power through mountains of meetings with relentless efficiency. Yet here he was, abruptly offloading critical tasks. Chris didn't question it further. Adam's word was final. He hustled off to rearrange the CEO's calendar, mystified but obedient. Adam entered his spacious corner office, a room dominated by floor-to-ceiling windows and flanked by sleek furniture that matched his taste for understated luxury. Normally, he'd feel a sense of pride in this space, an environment reflecting years of his fierce ambition. Today it felt hollow, not unlike a fancy shell. Sitting at his mahogany desk, he swiped aside documents awaiting his signature. So many crises and negotiations had begun and ended on the surface of this desk. None held a candle to the shock of learning he had a 3-year-old child. He thumbed through his phone, gaze drifting to Emily's hastily scribbled number in his pocket. A surge of guilt twisted inside him. Should he call her now, confirm the details? 1,000 questions sprang to mind. Did Matthew have any health concerns? What foods did he like? Which bedtime stories did he prefer? But Emily was still at work, and besides, Adam wasn't ready to lay out all his regrets into a phone call. He needed a plan, some way to prove to Emily and Matthew that he wasn't just swooping in out of nowhere to disrupt their lives. A knock sounded on the door. "Come in," Adam said, bracing himself for more corporate demands. But it was, surprisingly, his CFO, Miranda Gray, a sharp-eyed woman who'd managed the company's finances for a decade. She was the only executive who ever spoke to Adam with candid bluntness. "You're shuffling the schedule," Miranda said, arching a brow. "Problems?" Adam's impulse was to brush her off with a curt, "All fine," but something in his chest ached for even the smallest outlet. He respected Miranda more than most. Quietly, he leaned back, fingers tapping on the desk. "Personal matter," he said at last. "I just discovered I have a son, 3 years old." Miranda's steely demeanor thawed in surprise. "Oh." She went silent, her dark eyes scanning Adam's face. "So that's why we're clearing the board calls." He offered a faint, ironic laugh. "Look, no offense, but I'm not asking for advice. I just need a day to handle things." None taken. She studied him for another beat. "You know how big a shift this could be, for you and for the company? Will you be open about it?" Adam swallowed. The question was painful. "I don't want it to become tabloid gossip," he admitted. "At least not until I figure out a stable situation. The media feeds off a story like this." "Understood," Miranda replied gently. "Let me know if you need any help managing the PR aspect." He nodded, appreciating her discretion. Yes, the media storm would be inevitable if word got out that the high-profile Beaumont CEO had a secret toddler. The old Adam would have only worried about negative press or a stock market dip. But at this moment, he was more concerned with hurting Emily again, or overwhelming Matthew with sudden attention. After Miranda left, Adam stood at the window. The sky, once so bright, had turned cloudy, reflecting his tumult of emotions. He couldn't focus on financial spreadsheets or upcoming expansions. Instead, he texted Chris that he was leaving early. The drive back to the cafe felt oddly interminable, even though traffic was light. That small building, where a boy's laughter had suddenly rearranged Adam's entire existence, was now a beacon. More than once, he caught himself checking the time. Emily had asked him to return at closing. Would she really be willing to let him see Matthew again so soon? At a red light, he found himself recalling the last night he'd spent with Emily years ago. The memory hit him like a punch. They'd argued about his father's interference, about Adam's ambition, and whether it left room for the life she dreamed of. He told her he'd come back after a short overseas assignment. She'd given him one final look, halfway between love and heartbreak, that still haunted his thoughts. Then he'd left, and somehow neither had repaired the breach. He forced his mind back to the present, his heart drumming as the car turned onto the unassuming street leading to the cafe. In the dusky glow of late afternoon, he recognized the neon sign. Through the front windows, he spotted Emily wiping tables, apron still on. She stood up when she saw him step out of the car, her posture tensed like she was bracing herself. "Stay here," Adam instructed his driver quietly. He could handle this next part alone. When he entered, the place was almost empty except for a couple of regulars. Emily's manager nodded a curt greeting, then disappeared into the back, perhaps giving them space. On a stool near the counter, Matthew was busy coloring a picture, something with bright colors and scribbled circles. Emily approached tentatively. "Hi." "Hi," Adam echoed, his tone soft. He could hardly find the right words to voice everything he felt. Remorse, curiosity, longing. Then he knelt by Matthew's stool. "Hey, buddy, remember me?" Matthew turned bright eyes on him, smiling. His little hand, still clumsy with crayons, reached for Adam's tie. "Dad," he declared with unbridled enthusiasm. The word jolted Adam's heart again. Dad. It was so small, yet it hit with the force of a promise he wasn't sure he deserved. Slowly, he glanced at Emily. "Should we talk outside? Or maybe there's a quieter spot." She nodded, wiping her damp palms on the apron. "I just clocked out. Let me grab my things." She retrieved her coat, and after a short conference with the manager, Emily led Adam and Matthew outside into the crisp evening air. A gentle breeze rustled the trees lining the sidewalk. The sun was dipping beneath the buildings, painting the sky in pinkish hues. The tension between them was tangible. Emily looked uncertain about how to proceed, while Adam kept Matthew's small hand in his, afraid to break even that fragile contact. They ended up strolling to a small park a couple of blocks away, an unpretentious place with a solitary swing set, empty at this hour. Matthew let out a cheerful sound, dragging Adam toward the swings. The child's excitement temporarily dissolved some of the adult strain. In a spontaneous moment, Adam lifted Matthew onto a swing seat, carefully pushing him while Emily stood close by, arms folded against a chill in the air. "He's beautiful," Adam murmured, watching Matthew giggle as the swing moved. There was awe in his voice, as if he still couldn't believe this child was real. "He has your kindness, Emily." She smiled faintly, tears threatening to well again. "And your stubbornness." Adam huffed a quiet laugh, then grew serious. "I need to know everything, about him, about your life, please." Emily glanced down. "Well, after I realized your father was serious about driving me away, I left the city for a while. Stayed with a friend until Matthew was born. It wasn't easy. Some days I barely had enough to eat. But She inhaled. "I loved him, Adam, from the minute I knew he existed. Eventually I found a job waitressing here, a stable position, and we got a tiny apartment nearby. It's not the life I pictured, but Matthew has what he needs." Her gaze settled on the child, who was now demanding, "Higher, higher," from Adam. "I've been trying to shield him from questions about his father. I told him you traveled a lot." Adam's mouth tightened in distress. "And I missed all this. All those milestones. His first words, steps." Emily's voice softened. "I can't change that, Adam. None of us can. I'm telling you that he's always been loved. I never wanted him to feel abandoned." Adam gently slowed the swing, letting Matthew hop off. The boy toddled to a nearby patch of grass, fascinated by a caterpillar, giving the adults a brief moment. Adam turned, facing Emily directly. "I'm not that naive 20-something anymore, and I see I've made mistakes, huge ones. But if you'll let me, I want to be there for him now." She studied his face, searching for sincerity. "He needs consistency, not more heartbreak. If you come in, you have to stay." "I will." Adam nodded firmly. "No more running off. I want to provide for him. For both of you. Not just financially, but I want him to know me." Emily's shoulders sagged, relief and fear mingling in her expression. "Then we'll figure it out. Slowly." They stood close enough that Adam could see the faint freckles on her cheeks, a detail he remembered from years ago. His heart squeezed with a bittersweet ache. How long had he yearned for this closeness, yet never admitted it to himself? Matthew ran up, tugging on Emily's hand, then Adam's. "Hungry?" he declared, looking between them hopefully. Emily smiled wryly. "We should get going. I've got to make dinner at home. I can't really afford to eat out right now." Adam almost flinched. Another reminder that while he'd built a corporate empire, Emily had been scraping by. "May I join you?" he asked gently. "At least to walk you home?" She looked uncertain but finally nodded. "Okay," she said, "but my apartment is—" "Well, it's not—" "Emily," he interrupted, meeting her gaze. "I just want to be with you two, wherever that is." Her eyes glistened. "All right, let's go then." They left the small park, walking side by side down cracked sidewalks, Matthew happily swinging between them when they each took one of his hands. Though the streets were worn and unassuming, Adam found them oddly comforting. It wasn't the sleek world he was used to, but he welcomed the authenticity. For the first time in years, the ever-composed CEO allowed himself a moment of vulnerability and hope. The sun dipped lower, but in the fading light he felt an inexplicable warmth, a sign that despite the tangled past and the uncertain future, there was a chance for them to build something new. Emily's apartment building stood on a narrow side street with broken streetlights and faded paint. Though it was only a few blocks from the cafe, the neighborhood felt worlds away from the gleaming realm of skyscrapers and private cars Adam inhabited. As they approached, Matthew bounded ahead on the cracked sidewalk, humming his own tune. Adam reached out instinctively to steady the child whenever he tripped over uneven pavement. They entered through a chipped front door into a dim lobby that smelled faintly of detergent and damp paper. The flickering overhead light buzzed, giving off a tired hum. Emily paused by the row of mailboxes to retrieve a small stack of coupons and a single envelope, likely a bill. She tucked them under her arm and led Adam and Matthew up a narrow staircase. Their footsteps echoed on the worn steps, the banister rattling whenever they put weight on it. Adam's senses picked up everything: the chipped plaster on the stairwell walls, the scuffed floors, the faint cooking smells seeping from other apartments. It struck him how far this was from the life of polished abundance he took for granted. A pang of guilt tightened in his chest. While he'd navigated boardrooms and groaned the Beaumont name, Emily had struggled here, raising Matthew alone in a place that was so modest. Emily stopped at a third-floor landing, rummaging for her key. "Sorry about the mess," she said softly, her face a little red. She pushed open the door, and they stepped into a small but tidy living area. The apartment was a single-bedroom layout, with a kitchenette off to one side and an ancient sofa in the center of the living room. A few colorful pictures, likely drawn by Matthew, were taped to the walls, brightening the otherwise plain space. A second-hand TV sat on a rickety stand, and there was barely room for a small coffee table. Yet everything had an air of careful cleanliness, the result of Emily's meticulous effort to keep things in order. "Mommy's snack," Matthew announced, heading straight toward a plastic container of crackers on the little kitchen counter. Emily smiled apologetically. "He's always starving at the end of the day. I usually heat something up for him first." She turned to Adam, clearing her throat. "You're welcome to sit. I'll make dinner, but it might not be much." Adam set aside his designer jacket, unsure where to place it in such a compact space. "Thank you," he replied softly. "I don't need anything fancy. I'm just grateful to be here." He took in more details: the crocheted blanket folded on the back of the couch, the child's stickers on the low coffee table, and a small stack of picture books by the corner. All evidence that this was a home for mother and son, a cozy, hard-won sanctuary. Matthew waddled back, clutching a cracker and a small stuffed animal in his arms. He tugged at Adam's pant leg. "Look, Dad." He held up the worn plush rabbit proudly. Adam's heart squeezed at the word again. Dad. It was the second day in a row that the boy had used it so freely, and it still felt like an electric jolt every time. "That's a great rabbit," Adam murmured, crouching to examine it. "What's its name?" Matthew thought a moment, chewing on his cracker. "Bun Bun," he giggled. Emily turned on a small lamp in the living room. "He named it himself," she said, half smiling. "He sleeps with Bun Bun every night." Adam gingerly touched the toy's tattered ear. Well, Bun Bun must be a loyal friend. He felt the boy's trust radiating from every little grin, and it humbled him beyond words. Finally, Emily ushered them to the couch. "Sit, I'll see what's in the fridge," she offered. "We just got groceries, so I can probably throw together spaghetti or something simple." While Emily busied herself in the tiny kitchenette, rinsing vegetables, boiling water, Adam entertained Matthew. The boy clambered onto his lap, instantly comfortable, wanting to share his crayons. Adam helped him draw squiggly shapes on a scrap of paper. As they colored, he couldn't stop glancing at Emily, who worked a few feet away, her back turned, shoulders tight with an unspoken tension. He wondered how often she had eaten dinner alone, how many times she put a bandage on Matthew's knee without a partner by her side. The thought stirred both sorrow and determination. If he had lost years of fatherhood, maybe he could still be part of Matthew's life from now on, if Emily trusted him to do so. After a few quiet minutes, Emily served 3 plates of steaming spaghetti, a modest portion for each. They gathered around a small circular table squeezed near the sofa. The overhead light flickered again, as if it could go out at any second. Matthew happily dug in, tomato sauce smearing his cheeks. Adam took his first bite, pausing to savor the simple, homey flavor. Despite the minimal ingredients, it tasted better than many gourmet meals he'd had in fancy restaurants. Maybe because it was here at Emily's table with his son beside him. "It's really good," he said truthfully. "Thank you." She shrugged, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. Glad you like it. It's just something quick." "It's perfect," he interrupted gently. Silence fell between them, broken only by Matthew's excited chatter. "Mommy, I want juice," or "Dad, look at the noodles." This time, Adam caught Emily's eyes when the child used the word "Dad," and they shared a charged glance, an unspoken conversation about how quickly Matthew had accepted this new presence. Once they cleared plates, Emily guided Matthew to wash his hands. As she helped him at the sink, Adam discreetly studied the apartment's corners. No signs of extravagance, a worn heater, a stack of overdue notices half concealed under a magazine. He realized money must be incredibly tight. If only he had known. When Emily and Matthew returned, she slid a sippy cup of water onto the table. "He should probably get ready for bed soon," she said softly. It was nearly 8 p.m., and the child looked sleepy despite his boundless energy. Adam nodded, though part of him dreaded the moment he might have to leave. He couldn't keep imposing on them. "May I help with his bedtime routine?" The question spilled out hesitantly, unsure if she'd want him involved in something so personal. Emily hesitated, looking at Matthew, who was already yawning. Finally, she nodded. "Okay. Usually we do a quick bath, then pajamas, and maybe a short story if he's not too tired." She led the way to a cramped bathroom. The tub was barely big enough for a small child, but Matthew seemed accustomed to the space. With a squeal, he tossed Bun Bun aside and splashed around. Adam stood in the doorway, feeling slightly awkward. It was the first time he'd see the daily routine of fatherhood up close. A new territory for a man who was used to board meetings, not bubble baths. Yet there was a sweetness to the moment. Matthew chatted about random things, a friend at daycare, how he wanted a new coloring book. Emily carefully washed his curls with gentle motions, occasionally glancing at Adam to see if he was uncomfortable. Adam offered a reassuring smile, leaning in to pass a towel. After the bath, Emily helped Matthew into soft pajamas with cartoon characters on them. The boy then scurried to the living room, rummaging through a small pile of books. He picked out a short story about forest animals. As Emily started to read, Adam sat beside her on the couch. Matthew nestled between them, Bun Bun perched on his lap, his damp hair curling at the nape of his neck. Emily read in a soft, rhythmic voice. Adam watched her lips move and glimpsed how her eyes sparkled with gentle affection each time she turned a page for Matthew. This was what it meant to be a parent, these quiet moments that knit hearts together. Before long, Matthew's eyelids drooped. He rested his head against Adam's arm, and Adam's pulse thudded. The child's trust felt overwhelming, like a fragile gift that Adam wasn't sure he deserved but would do anything to keep safe. Emily closed the book. "Bedtime," she whispered. Carefully, she lifted Matthew, who was half asleep, and carried him to the small bedroom, a space that served as both her room and the child's, separated by a flimsy curtain. The bed was neatly made, a smaller mattress pushed against the wall. She laid Matthew down, placing Bun Bun next to him. The boy shifted to get comfy, eyes fluttering shut. Adam hovered at the threshold, uncertain if he should step inside. Emily gestured for him to come closer. He did, gently smoothing Matthew's hair. "Sleep well," he whispered, his voice catching on the unfamiliar role, father saying goodnight. After they left the bedroom, Emily pulled the curtain halfway, letting a little hall light filter in. Then they were alone in the living area, the hush of the sleeping child enveloping them. Adam's emotions finally surged to the surface. "Thank you," he murmured, voice thick, "for letting me share that." She nodded, wrapping her arms around herself. "I guess it went okay." Her smile was tentative, eyes reflecting relief and caution all at once. "He likes you. A lot." "I like him too," Adam replied, an understatement if there ever was one. He hesitated, glancing around the dim apartment. "I should probably let you both rest." Emily folded her arms, the weight of the day evident in her posture. You can stay a bit if you want, but I understand if you have work. Adam considered. A part of him didn't want to go at all. He wanted to remain right here, figuring out how to be the father Matthew needed, how to reconnect with Emily after so much lost time. But he saw the exhaustion etched on her face and knew pushing it might be too much in one night. I have some urgent matters to handle, he admitted softly. But, please, can I come back tomorrow? I'll call or text first, he added hastily. I don't want to intrude. She studied him, then gave a small nod. Okay, tomorrow. But let's take this slowly, Adam. A lot has changed. He released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Thank you, he repeated. Then, without fully planning it, he reached out and gently touched her hand. A brief, meaningful gesture. Her eyes flickered with emotion. For a moment, their shared history hung in the air, raw and full of possibilities not yet explored. Finally, he stepped away, grabbing his jacket. She unlocked the door quietly to let him out. Standing in the hallway, Adam felt a swirl of hope and regret. A single day had bridged years of distance, yet so much remained unknown. Good night, Emily, he whispered. She offered him a tentative smile. Good night, Adam, and thank you for being gentle with Matthew. He nodded, then quietly descended the stairs. The drive back to his upscale condo was a blur, his mind alive with images of a sleepy boy curling against him and Emily's soft voice reading a bedtime story. For once, Adam didn't dread tomorrow's onslaught of business demands. He had a far more important priority now, to earn his place in that little boy's life, and perhaps find the love he'd lost all those years ago. Adam barely slept that night. After returning to his upscale condo, a gleaming fortress of glass and steel overlooking the city, he paced the wide living room, thoughts chasing each other endlessly. The modern furnishings and pristine decor once felt like the perfect representation of his achievements. Now they seemed sterile, devoid of the warmth he had just experienced in Emily's little apartment. He tossed his tie on a leather sofa and made himself a cup of tea, ignoring the blinking messages on his phone. His mind was too full of Emily's voice, Matthew's sleepy giggle, the smell of that modest spaghetti dinner. No corporate crisis or million-dollar contract could compete with the revelation that he had a son. In the silence, he tried to process all Emily had revealed. His father's interference loomed largest. How he'd offered her money to vanish, how he'd painted a picture of Adam forging a future that left no room for love or family. Anger flared inside him, mingling with guilt. While Adam had soared up the corporate ladder, Emily had scraped by, raising their child alone, all because of a calculated lie that Adam never suspected. Eventually, exhaustion dragged him to bed, where he fell into a fitful sleep haunted by half-formed dreams. He saw Emily on a distant shore, calling out for him while a storm gathered overhead. He saw Matthew, his tiny arms extended, just out of reach. Then, a towering silhouette of his father, always between them. Adam woke drenched in sweat, heart pounding. The next morning, Adam moved on autopilot, skipping his usual hour in the gym to dress quickly and rush to the office. He had scheduled a 9 a.m. meeting with his top executives, something that couldn't be postponed again, but he was determined to keep the day as light as possible after that. He wanted time to see Emily and Matthew, time to fix things. As soon as he stepped into Beaumont Innovations, employees greeted him with polite nods and forced smiles. Word had spread that he was in an uncharacteristically private mood. His personal assistant, Chris, hurried to update him. "Sir, we have the infrastructure review at 9, a follow-up with R&D at 10, and cancel the R&D follow-up." Adam cut in, not unkindly but with a finality that brooked no argument. "I'll do the 9 a.m. meeting only, then I'm leaving for the day." Chris swallowed. "Of course, Mr. Beaumont." 20 minutes later, Adam sat at the head of a sleek conference table, listening to department heads drone about quarterly performance metrics. He tried to concentrate, but every so often he'd catch himself thinking of Matthew's bright smile. Realizing he'd missed a question, he blinked and cleared his throat. The group of executives watched him curiously, he who was normally so sharp and meticulous. "Apologies," Adam said. "Could you restate that last point?" The CFO recapped, an edge of concern in her tone. Adam forced himself to focus and make decisive calls. The quicker he concluded this, the faster he could return to what truly mattered. At last, the meeting ended. Adam practically leapt to his feet, handing off a stack of documents to Chris. "File these as needed. Any emergent issues, text me. Otherwise, I'll be out." He'd almost reached the elevator when his office phone buzzed in Chris's hand. Chris answered, tension creeping into his expression. "Mr. Beaumont," he covered the phone's mouthpiece. "It's your father's secretary. She says he's at the penthouse. He wants to see you today." Adam's posture stiffened. His father, Henry Beaumont, rarely paid unannounced visits. Usually, Henry commanded Adam's presence in boardrooms or formal events. Coming to the city penthouse could only mean one thing. Henry sensed something big was happening and wanted to intervene. Adam took a measured breath. "Tell her I'm not available until late. I have personal obligations." Chris relayed the message, then hung up, looking rattled. "She insisted your father is on his way to the office if you don't come to him, sir." An old knot of anxiety twisted in Adam's gut. For most of his life, Henry Beaumont's voice had been law, overshadowing Adam's own ambitions with the family's grand expectations. Adam clenched his jaw. "Fine, I'll deal with him here." He walked back toward his office suite. Sure enough, within minutes, the private elevator opened onto his floor, and Henry Beaumont strode in, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, with an expression of cool command that turned heads among staff. Without waiting for an introduction, he swept past the startled employees toward Adam's office, his stride that of a man used to controlling every space he entered. Adam was waiting inside, arms folded. Chris discreetly shut the door as Henry crossed into the room, a mild scowl pulling at his distinguished features. "Adam," Henry greeted, voice low and reproachful. "I had to come personally since you weren't answering my calls. Mind explaining what's going on? You're canceling crucial meetings, rearranging your schedule with no notice." Adam forced himself to remain calm. "Good to see you too, Father. If you must know, I've had pressing personal matters." Henry's gaze sharpened, flickering with suspicion. "Personal matters? Is this about some woman?" The way he spat "woman" stirred Adam's anger. He thought of Emily, her tired face, her unwavering love for Matthew. "Yes," he replied evenly, "and it's none of your concern." Henry took a step closer, dropping his voice. "It is my concern if it jeopardizes the company. I won't watch you sabotage everything for some fling." Adam's patience snapped. "It's not a fling. She's the mother of my child." The older man froze. Adam saw a flash of genuine shock. Henry recovered swiftly, jaw tightening. "So she told you, after all these years." Adam's stomach twisted. "You knew." It wasn't even a question. He saw the confirmation in his father's cold stare. "You not only knew I had a child, but you actively kept it from me." Henry's expression hardened. "Don't dramatize. I acted in your best interest. That girl was a distraction, standing in the way of your future. I protected you from a scandal that would have derailed your path to success." Adam stared, a swirl of fury and heartbreak pounding through him. "A scandal? We're talking about my son. You stole years of his life from me, stole years of fatherhood, of me being there for Emily." A dismissive sniff escaped Henry. "She was a nobody, barely educated, working odd jobs. I offered her enough money to start fresh, to ensure she never complicated your life. If she refused, that was her choice." Adam's fists clenched. The old him might have backed down, cowed by Henry's authority, but not anymore. "Don't you see what you did? I could have..." We could have... He took a ragged breath. All this time I thought she walked away. Meanwhile, you orchestrated everything to keep us apart. For what? So I'd focus on being your perfect successor? Henry's gaze iced over. Look at you now, CEO of a major conglomerate recognized globally. Without that single-minded focus, do you think you'd be here? Do you think I'd let you throw away everything for some teenage romance? Adam's throat constricted. He felt an urge to shout, to tear down the polished veneer of the father he once idolized. That was my choice to make, not yours. Emily was never some teenage romance. She was the woman I loved. She's the mother of my child. You had no right. A tense silence gripped the office. Outside, staff likely tiptoed around, aware that father and son were locked in confrontation. Henry's voice finally broke the stillness. You're overreacting. It's not too late to hush this up. If the press finds out that the Beaumont heir has an illegitimate child, it'll hurt shareholder confidence. We can still handle it quietly. Adam shook his head, incredulous. No, I won't hide my own son. The finality in his words hung in the air. If you can't accept that, it's your problem, not mine. I'm done letting you pull the strings in my personal life. Henry's eyes blazed. It was clear he wasn't used to being defied, especially on a matter he deemed crucial. Adam, think carefully. The consequences are on you, Adam snapped. I can handle my own life now, and that includes my child. You want to talk about consequences? Consider your own role in driving Emily to struggle all these years. She raised him alone, father. Alone. While I built a career under your watchful eye, she was... You're letting emotion cloud your judgment, Henry cut in harshly. You have your position because you avoided unnecessary entanglements. We can't allow some waitress to dismantle all we've established. Rage flared hot in Adam's veins. He'd never been one for physical confrontation, but right now he felt a savage impulse to throw his father out of the office. Instead, he reined himself in, voice turning quiet and lethal. You talk about her like she's worthless, but she is my son's mother, and she's never asked for a thing from me. She's raised a bright, wonderful boy, and you tried to bury them both in obscurity. That's unforgivable. Henry pressed his lips together, exuding an air of finality. Mark my words, Adam. If you go down this path, it will cost you more than you realize, professionally and personally. Adam exhaled shakily, letting the threat roll off his back. He'd heard enough. I'll bear that cost. Now leave, father, before I say something I'll regret. For a moment, Henry looked ready to retort, but then he pivoted, adjusting his jacket with a crisp gesture. You'll see sense eventually, he said, stalking out the door. He offered no farewell. Adam stood alone in the aftermath, chest tight. He replayed the conversation in his head, anger roiling with lingering sadness. He knew Henry's manipulations ran deep, but hearing them spelled out was a punch in the gut. And the worst part? Some small part of Adam still craved his father's approval, no matter how toxic that need was. Closing his eyes, he inhaled slowly. No. He had promised Emily he wouldn't run from this or hide behind business concerns. His father's displeasure was a price he'd pay 1,000 times over if it meant having a real relationship with Matthew. He strode to the elevator, ignoring the staff who quickly looked away, sensing his fury. In the lobby, Chris rushed up, concern etched on his face. Sir, your father just... Adam lifted a hand. Clear my schedule for the rest of the day. But everything, now. Adam's tone brooked no argument. Chris stepped back, stunned. Yes, Mr. Beaumont. Minutes later, Adam slid into the back seat of his waiting car. He leaned forward to speak to his driver, voice shaky but resolute. Take me to Westport Café, he said, naming Emily's workplace. It wasn't her shift time, but maybe she'd be at home or somewhere nearby. Adam needed to see her again, to hold on to the only thing that felt real and good after such a confrontation. The car pulled away from the curb. As buildings blurred past, Adam realized he'd finally stood up to the man whose influence had shaped his whole life. There was no turning back. His father had threatened consequences, but Adam was done making decisions out of fear. He had a child who needed him, and that truth eclipsed any corporate risk. He stared out the window, his reflection superimposed over the bustling city. In that reflection, he saw a man in transition, stepping away from old loyalties and forging new bonds. The tension coiled in his shoulders eased only slightly as he reminded himself that Emily and Matthew waited on the other side of that confrontation, living, breathing proof that another future was possible if he dared to claim it. Adam had the car drop him off on the corner near the small, nondescript building where Emily's apartment was located. Even from half a block away, he recognized the worn exterior with its chipped paint and faded fire escape. He hadn't texted or called first. Part of him worried she might tell him not to come. Another part needed the immediacy of a face-to-face conversation after the confrontation with his father. He headed up the stoop, noticing a few kids playing hopscotch on the sidewalk. Their laughter was a bright contrast to the gloom in his mind. Once inside, the dim light and musty smell of the lobby reminded him of the previous evening. He took the stairs 2 at a time, heart thudding. What if Emily wasn't home? Or worse, what if she was home but not ready to see him? He braced himself for any outcome. Reaching her door, he paused, listening. Faint music drifted from within, some children's tune on a tinny speaker. Encouraged, he knocked lightly. Through the door's thin barrier, he heard a muffled voice hush the music, then the unmistakable patter of small feet. A moment later, the door cracked open. Matthew peeked out, curly hair in disarray, eyes wide. Upon seeing Adam, he broke into a grin. "Dad!" he squealed, flinging the door wide. His small arms wrapped around Adam's legs. Adam's heart twisted with both delight and heartache. "Hey, buddy," he murmured, carefully ruffling Matthew's hair. He couldn't believe how quickly the child had accepted him. Emily appeared behind Matthew, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She looked surprised but not upset. "Adam, I wasn't expecting you until later," she said softly. "Is everything all right?" He nodded, stepping inside and closing the door gently. I had a big run-in with my father today." A bitter note crept into his voice. "Found out a few things." She guided Matthew back, encouraging him to keep coloring on a sheet of paper near the coffee table. Then, motioning Adam to the small kitchen area, she asked in a low tone, "Do you need to talk about it?" He exhaled slowly. "Yes, but only if you have time." A fleeting concern showed on her face. "Sure, of course, just give me a minute." She turned to Matthew. "Sweetie, can you draw another picture for Dad? I'll be right here if you need me." Matthew glanced up, nodded eagerly, and went back to scribbling with crayons. Emily then led Adam to the far corner of the living room near a modest window. The midday light revealed the humble surroundings in sharper detail, but Adam's focus was on Emily's gentle, questioning gaze. "How did it go?" she asked carefully. Adam leaned against the windowsill, struggling to contain the tension still coursing through his veins. "He knew," Adam said flatly. "My father. He knew about Matthew the entire time. He arranged everything to keep us apart." Emily's expression pinched with pain, then shifted to resignation. "I assumed that was the case after he showed up at my door all those years ago." Her voice was quiet but carried an edge of remembered hurt. "I'm sorry if it caused a rift between you two." "I'm not," Adam replied, realizing he meant it. "He stole from me, from you, from Matthew, and all for his own selfish reasons. We argued. It got ugly." He let out a shaky breath. "But I don't regret confronting him." Emily searched his eyes, concern woven with compassion. "That must have been hard. I know how close you were to your dad before." "I thought I was close," Adam muttered, bitterness creeping in. "It's more like I was just obedient, doing what he wanted whenever he wanted. Now I see how he manipulated me, Sent me overseas to seal a business deal at the exact time you needed me most." He paused, his voice thick. "I can't forgive him. Not now." A silence passed, heavy and charged with years of hurt. Emily placed a tentative hand on his forearm. "Adam, I never wanted to ruin your relationship with your father. Despite everything, I know he's important to you." He gently covered her hand with his. "No, Emily, you're not the one who ruined it." His gaze flicked to Matthew, who was humming to himself, cheeks smudged with crayon. "Do you mind if I stay a while today? I just need to be near him, and you." She hesitated only for a second before nodding. "Of course. I was about to make lunch. It's just sandwiches, but you're welcome to join us." He managed a small smile. "Thank you. That sounds perfect." They moved to the kitchenette. As Emily laid out bread, deli meat, and some sliced cheese on a tiny counter, Adam quietly helped, taking note of her every movement. She seemed more at ease with him today, less guarded, though traces of tension remained. An unspoken, fragile hope hovered between them. When Emily handed him a plate to set on the table, their fingers brushed. Adam swallowed hard, remembering how a simple touch used to electrify him back when they were younger. Some of that electricity was still there. He caught himself looking at her a second too long, scanning her features, the curve of her cheek, the quiet strength in her eyes. Her life hadn't been easy. It showed in subtle lines near her brow, but she was as beautiful as ever. They sat at the little table, Matthew between them. The boy munched happily, babbling about a cartoon he liked. Adam listened, nodding in fascination, unsure of how to respond about a show he'd never heard of. Yet Matthew didn't seem to mind Adam's ignorance. He just wanted to share his excitement. As they ate, Adam noticed Emily sneaking looks at him. Something in her eyes asked whether he'd vanish again after today. He couldn't blame her for doubting him. He inhaled and mustered the courage to speak up. "Emily," he said, setting down his glass of water, "I'd like to be in Matthew's life in a real way, not just dropping by now and then. Could we figure out a schedule? Maybe I can pick him up from daycare sometimes, or—" She blinked in surprise, almost as if she hadn't dared to hope he'd offer such a thing. "Of course, I'd like that, but let's take it step by step." Her gaze flicked to Matthew. "He's young. It might confuse him if there's too much change overnight, but yes, I'd appreciate your help." Relief unfurled in Adam's chest. "Absolutely. Small steps." He considered a moment. "What if we start with weekends? I could take him to a park or out for a meal or just spend time here if you're comfortable." Emily nodded. "That sounds reasonable. I work weekends too, though. One shift on Saturday mornings, another Sunday brunch shift. But there's a daycare near the cafe that sometimes watches him extra hours if I need it. If you took him during those times, that'd help me avoid the extra daycare cost." Adam's heart twisted again at the mention of daycare costs. Emily had managed so much on her own. "Yes, let's do that," he said without hesitation. "But also, if you ever need financial help, She lifted a hand, cutting him off gently. "We'll talk about that later. Matthew and I have gotten by, even if it's tight. I don't want handouts. I only want what's fair for his sake." He nodded, respecting her pride but making a silent vow to do more. They finished their sandwiches in a thoughtful quiet, occasionally punctuated by Matthew's commentary or a playful clink of dishes. After lunch, the boy demanded playtime. Adam found himself seated on the living room floor, legs folded awkwardly, while Matthew introduced him to a battered set of plastic toy cars. Emily watched from the couch with a faint smile, as if still amazed at the sight of them together. At one point, Adam looked up at her. "Have you thought about going back to school or pursuing something else?" "You're bright, Em. You always talked about traveling or—" She exhaled a soft laugh. "You remember that?" A rueful smile touched her lips. "Hard to travel when you barely make rent every month, but Sometimes I daydream. Maybe once Matthew's older, I can take night classes. Adam felt a pang. She had once confided those dreams in him, back when they were young and hopeful. "I'd like to help, if you'll let me," he offered gently. "No strings attached. You deserve a chance to follow your passion." Her eyes flickered with emotion. "It's not that simple, Adam. I have responsibilities now, Matthew, bills, everything. But thank you. Maybe someday." He didn't push it further, sensing how guarded she still felt about financial topics. Instead, he returned his focus to Matthew, who was vrooming a toy car around Adam's shoe. The moment was sweet, normal, and precious. Father and son playing on a humble apartment floor. Time slipped by. In the soft lamplight of mid-afternoon, they almost seemed like a family. Matthew eventually got restless, asking Emily if they could go outside. She glanced at Adam. "Would you like to come with us to the park? It's not fancy, just a small patch of green behind the neighboring block." Adam's answer was immediate. "I'd love to." They packed a small bag, water bottle, a snack, a spare shirt for Matthew in case he got dirty. Then they headed out together. The sun, now high, shone on cracked sidewalks and sagging fences. Yet in Matthew's eyes, it was a grand adventure. He skipped along, holding Emily's hand in one of his tiny palms and Adam's in the other. The park was modest indeed. A single swing set, a slide that screeched in need of oil, and a patch of grass dotted with dandelions. A few neighborhood kids played tag, while a tired-looking mom watched from a bench. The sight reminded Adam of how far he was from the manicured lawns of exclusive country clubs his father had taken him to as a child. But he didn't mind at all. Here there was honesty, life, realness. Matthew ran toward the slide, leaving his parents to stroll side by side across the grass. Emily slipped her hands into her pockets, thoughtful. "I never thought I'd see you here in my world," she admitted softly. Adam's gaze lingered on Matthew, now shrieking with glee as he slid down. "I'm sorry it took me so long," he said. "I'm sorrier that I didn't know, but I promise you, Em, I won't walk away again." He hesitated, then gently added, "I hope you'll trust me enough to let me try." She studied him, her eyes brimming with conflicting emotions, lingering pain, flickers of hope, guarded longing. "I want to believe that," she murmured. "I really do?" They stood there, side by side, watching their child discover the simple joy of a sunny day. For all the differences and difficulties looming ahead, Adam's father, the media, the gap of years, the moment felt like a fragile promise, a chance to piece together what had been broken. At last, Emily turned, heading toward the bench to sit. Adam followed, where they could see Matthew better. The boy zoomed around, unburdened by the adult complexities at hand. With a smile, Adam thought to himself, maybe that's how it should be, Matthew free to enjoy his innocence, and he, as the father, stepping up to protect it. Sensing Emily's gaze on him, Adam reached for her hand, not quite holding it but letting their fingers brush. She didn't pull away, and as Matthew called for him to watch another slide, Adam felt a surge of warmth. This was the place he wanted to be, here, now, present for a world he had once let slip away. Late afternoon sunshine cast long shadows across the sidewalk as the small family trio made their way back from the park. Matthew was visibly tired, yawning every few steps despite his protests that he wasn't sleepy. Emily carried him for the last block, his arms wrapped around her neck. Adam walked close, keeping a protective eye on them both. At the apartment door, Emily lowered Matthew to the ground and he blinked drowsily while gripping her hand. Adam noticed how the little boy's sneakers were nearly worn through and a wave of resolve washed over him. He would ensure Matthew never lacked basics again. He would do it quietly if Emily insisted on her independence, but he would do it nonetheless. Inside, the apartment felt warmer than before, almost cozy. A comforting hush fell in the living room as Emily set Matthew on the couch with a pillow propped behind him. Adam could see his son's eyelids drooping. In minutes, the child might slip into an impromptu nap. Emily offered Adam a small smile. "I'll put on a cartoon. That usually keeps him calm if he doesn't want a nap yet." Adam nodded, lingering near the sofa as she found a children's channel on the old TV. A cheery theme song filled the air. Matthew blinked at the screen, but his head kept lolling against the cushion. Adam gently brushed a curl from the boy's forehead, heart tightening with a fierce, tender protectiveness. "He's had a busy day," Adam murmured. Emily sat on the opposite end of the sofa, letting out a quiet sigh. "Yeah, it's not often he gets so much playtime with two parents around." Her tone was wistful, a touch of sadness beneath her words. Adam lowered himself to the sofa's middle cushion, mindful not to jostle the half-asleep toddler. "Emily, can we talk about something?" he asked softly, his gaze flicking to the child before returning to her. She tilted her head, wary but curious. "Sure." He exhaled, bracing himself. "I've been thinking about how to make this transition easier. For Matthew, yes, but also for you. Would you consider letting me help with a new place? Somewhere a bit bigger, safer, in a neighborhood where Matthew can play outside without worry. I know you're proud, but—" Emily's eyes widened. She glanced at Matthew, then back to Adam. "A new place? Adam, I can't just up and move on a whim. This is where we live, where I can afford the rent." "I'd pay the difference," Adam offered earnestly. "Not as charity, but as my responsibility to our family. I can't stand the idea of you two in an unsafe area, or that you're cramped here." Emily's hands twisted in her lap. "But I don't want to be dependent on you or feel like you're swooping in to fix everything." He understood the fear of losing control over her life. Gently, he reached for her hand, and she let him take it this time. "I get it, Em. I'm not trying to undermine your independence. But doesn't Matthew deserve more space? A safer environment? I have the means, and I believe it's the right thing to do." Her gaze dropped to where his fingers laced around hers. Slowly, she nodded, tears threatening. "He does deserve it, and I don't want to keep struggling if there's a better option. It's just hard to accept help when I've spent years doing it all alone." Adam pressed her hand gently. "You're not alone anymore," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Let me share the load." She didn't speak for a moment, swallowing back tears. Finally, she gave a small nod. "All right, I'll consider looking for something better. Maybe a small 2-bedroom closer to the cafe, but I want to be part of choosing it. I can't just have you present me with a fancy penthouse." Adam let out a soft laugh, relief flooding him. "Deal. We'll find a place that suits Matthew's needs, and yours." They both looked down as Matthew gave a tiny snore, the cartoon's bright colors dancing over his slack features. Emily grabbed a throw blanket from the armrest and draped it over him. The child's soft breathing filled the moment with tranquility. Adam lifted his gaze from the sleeping boy, studying Emily's profile. He remembered countless nights long ago when they would stay up talking about the future, spinning dreams and secrets in the glow of her lamp. So much had changed, yet right now she felt achingly familiar. "Emily," he began, his voice hushed. "Thank you for letting me in." She turned, her eyes searching his. "It's what Matthew needs," she answered, almost reflexively. Then her expression softened. "But also, it feels like what I need too." He swallowed, the sincerity of her confession sending warmth through him. "I'm glad." They sat in companionable silence for a while, the cartoon's cheerful jingle covering the quiet moments as they watched their sleeping son. Adam thought about his father's threats, public scandal, shareholder disapproval, all the corporate implications. Yet none of that could compete with the serenity he felt here, in a modest living room with the person and child who truly mattered. Eventually, Adam glanced at his watch. I might need to go handle a few things at the office. Some tasks I left hanging. But I'd like to come back in the evening, if that's all right. Maybe bring dinner?" Emily gave a tentative smile. "You don't have to do that." "I want to." He paused. "Unless you'd prefer something else?" She shook her head, a hint of a grin tugging at her lips. "Dinner sounds nice. Thank you." He stood carefully, so as not to wake Matthew. The child shifted in his slumber, brow furrowing slightly before settling back into dreamland. Emily rose as well, walking Adam to the door. They reached the hallway, and Adam lingered, reluctant to leave. He could see the same hesitation in her eyes, both of them aware of the fragile bridge they were building. Then, on a soft impulse, Adam placed a gentle hand on her cheek, brushing his thumb along her jaw. She stiffened, not in rejection, but in surprise. Her eyes fluttered closed for a second as if recalling an old memory of affection. When she opened them again, her gaze carried the weight of all they'd lost and the faintest spark of hope for what could be rebuilt. Leaning in, Adam pressed a light kiss to her forehead, not pushing for more, just a quiet testament of remorse and longing. She exhaled, her breath shaky. For a moment, she rested her hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat beneath the crisp fabric of his shirt. Then they pulled apart, tension and tenderness entwined. "I'll see you later," he whispered. She nodded. "Be careful driving." He offered a small smile. "Always." As he walked down the stairs, Adam felt an unaccustomed buoyancy, like a door had been opened in his chest. Yes, there would be complications. His father's anger, the media's inevitable curiosity, even Emily's rightful caution. But for the first time in a long while, he felt he was walking a path that led to true meaning, not just financial success. Outside, the sun was still bright, and the city's bustle surrounded him. He headed for his car, already planning how to reorder his life to accommodate Emily and Matthew. He was under no illusions it would be simple, but he didn't want simple, he wanted real. An hour later, as he breezed into the office, Chris did a double-take. "Sir, you're back?" Adam nodded, exuding a calm that belied the turmoil of the last 24 hours. "Yes, but not for long." He glanced at the stack of folders on his desk. "Let's get through the essentials so I can leave before dinner time. I have somewhere important to be." Chris, clearly aware of a big shift in his boss, quickly began listing items that needed immediate attention. Adam tackled them with brisk efficiency, his mind still half on Emily's apartment, half on the future they might build. By the time he finished, it was late afternoon. He grabbed his suit jacket, checking messages on his phone. He'd asked an assistant to find some good takeout options near Emily's neighborhood. He had no idea what she preferred these days, but he recalled a time she loved Thai food. Perhaps that would be a nice surprise. Leaving the building, Adam noticed one missed call from a private number, undoubtedly his father. He didn't bother listening to the voicemail. For once, Henry Beaumont's demands could wait. Adam felt a steely certainty. If a choice arose between empire or family, he would choose family. Let the corporate world buzz and fret. He refused to abandon his son again. He slid into his car, telling the driver the address of a reputable Thai restaurant not far from Emily's place. As they merged into traffic, Adam stared out at the city skyline. A sense of purpose grounded him, a stark contrast to the unrest he'd felt for years. It was extraordinary how a small boy with curly hair had the power to reorient a man's entire life. He glanced at the bag on the seat next to him, containing a small gift he'd picked up on impulse, a children's book about an adventurous bunny. He imagined reading it to Matthew, seeing the boy's bright eyes widen with every turn of the page. Maybe it was too soon for gifts. Maybe Emily would worry he was spoiling the child. But Adam couldn't help wanting to bring a bit of joy, to make up for lost time in the small ways he could. As the car wove through the city streets, he silently rehearsed how to tell Emily about his father's looming disapproval, the potential corporate fallout. But would she even be surprised? She knew the Beaumont clan's formidable power. Still, he owed her honesty. Hiding concerns could only damage the fragile trust forming between them. Finally, the car stopped at the Thai place. Adam stepped out, placed a takeout order, and waited near the sidewalk. The enticing aromas wafting from the kitchen reminded him of the nights he and Emily used to try new cuisines together. How naive they were back then, believing everything would fall into place as long as they loved each other. Time had proven otherwise, but maybe the love was still there, buried beneath regret. Carrying the warm containers, he returned to the car, instructing the driver once more to Emily's apartment. This time he felt no hesitation. In the space of a day, her apartment had become something like a second home, even if a temporary one. He climbed the familiar stairs and rapped lightly on the door. Nearly at once it opened. Emily's face appeared, flushed from cooking or maybe from anticipation. Her wary expression melted into a shy smile when she spotted the takeout bag. "Hey!" she greeted, stepping aside to let him in. "You came back." Adam answered with a soft chuckle. "I said I would." He lifted the bag in his hand. "Hope you still like Thai food." She breathed in appreciatively. "It smells amazing. I haven't had Thai in a long time." He slipped inside, noticing the apartment felt cozier in the evening light. Matthew was rolling a ball back and forth on the carpet, and he perked up at Adam's presence. "Dad!" the boy cried, toddling over, ball forgotten. Kneeling, Adam greeted him warmly, feeling his chest swell at Matthew's delight. "I brought dinner for us, buddy. You can try some noodles, or we might have rice too." Matthew's eyes sparkled, though he likely had no clue about Thai cuisine. The child just recognized excitement and affection in the air. Emily shut the door behind them, then turned to Adam. "You didn't have to do all this, you know." He met her gaze. "I wanted to." A comfortable silence hung for a beat. Then Emily cleared her throat. "Let's set up the table. We can all eat together." They moved into a quick rhythm, Emily grabbing plates and Adam unpacking the takeout containers, pad thai, green curry, rice, and spring rolls. A small wave of contentment washed over him at the simple domesticity of setting a table for three. Matthew climbed onto his chair with help from Emily, eyes wide at the intriguing spread of food. He pointed to the pad thai noodles excitedly. "What's that?" he asked in his toddler lisp. "Noodles," Emily explained, scooping a small portion onto his plate. "They might taste a little different from what you're used to, but I think you'll like them." Adam served himself and Emily, then sat down. The savory scents and gentle warmth of the apartment reminded him of that first home-cooked meal Emily had made for him years ago. Except now, there was a third person at the table, tiny but oh so significant. As they ate, Matthew squealed about the funny taste of the sauce but kept taking more bites, fascinated by each new flavor. Emily laughed at his reactions, and Adam found himself grinning over trivial things, feeling lighter than he had in ages. When the meal ended, Matthew, inevitably, had more sauce on his shirt than in his mouth. Emily led him to the sink to clean up. Adam took the opportunity to rise and pull out the small book from his pocket. He said tentatively, approaching her side, "I brought something else. Just a little gift for Matthew." She turned off the faucet, patting the boy's hands dry. "A gift?" Adam held out the slim book, a hardcover with bright illustrations of a mischievous bunny traveling through forests. "I saw it and thought of him. I was hoping maybe I could read it to him tonight." Emily's lips curved in a tentative smile. "That's thoughtful. Thank you." She glanced at Matthew, who was already reaching for the shiny cover with curiosity. "I'm sure he'll love it." They moved to the couch, where Matthew wriggled onto Adam's lap, cuddling close to see the book's pictures. Emily settled beside them, arms brushing lightly against Adam's. With the lamp casting a warm glow, Adam began to read. His voice was initially tentative. He wasn't used to reading stories aloud, but Matthew's giggles and exclamations emboldened him. Each turn of the page revealed whimsical images of the bunny's adventures, hiding from a fox, meeting a family of squirrels, finding a hidden treehouse. Matthew pointed and squealed at every detail, demanding Adam name each new creature. Emily watched them, her expression softened with a gentle light that hinted at a tenderness she tried hard not to show. As the story wound to a close, Matthew's yawns became more frequent and his eyelids drooped. Adam finished the last page, reading in a quiet, soothing voice. Then carefully, he ran a hand over the child's curls. "Time for bed, buddy?" Matthew mumbled a sleepy protest but clung to Adam's collar. Emily laughed softly. "He's extra clingy when he's tired. Come on, let's tuck you in." She stood, and Adam followed, carrying the half-asleep boy into the bedroom area. Emily turned down the covers on the small mattress. Adam laid Matthew down gently, pulling the blanket to his chin. The boy stirred, eyes fluttering, then drifted off, Bun tucked under his arm. After a few moments, they backed out of the bedroom, leaving the curtain partially drawn. In the dimly lit living area, Adam and Emily stood in close proximity, the hush of nighttime wrapping around them. Without speaking, she led him back to the couch. They sat. The overhead light turned low. Silence reigned, warm and fragile. Adam reached for her hand again, and this time she let him hold it. Her gaze flicked to their entwined fingers. "I want to trust this. Trust you." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "But I'm scared, Adam. So much has happened." He nodded, thumb stroking her knuckles. "I know. I'm scared too. I know I can't erase the past. But I promise I'll be here. We'll figure it out one day at a time." She searched his face, tears threatening. "I want that to be true." Adam responded with a gentle squeeze, his own heart raw with the weight of it all. "It is. I swear." They sat for a while, hands clasped, letting the quiet speak for them. Outside, streetlights glowed faintly through the window. Matthew's soft breathing from the bedroom sounded like the sweetest lullaby, reminding them both of the love and responsibility that bound them together now. Eventually, Adam reluctantly stood to leave, not wanting to overstay but wishing he could remain forever. He cupped Emily's cheek, searching her eyes. She leaned into the touch for a heartbeat before turning her face slightly, uncertain. "Good night, Adam," she murmured. "Thank you. For everything." He forced himself to release her and step back. "Good night, Em," he said softly, heading to the door. As he slipped out into the hallway, he realized he was leaving a part of himself behind. But for the first time, he wasn't afraid, because he would be back. This time, he was determined to stay the course, no matter the obstacles. He closed the door gently, the soft click resonating with a sense of promise. Down the dim stairwell, he walked with a steadiness born of newfound resolve. He was done letting others define his choices, done being absent from the life of the son he adored. The future might be uncertain, but he felt it calling him forward, urging him to reclaim love and fatherhood after so many lost years. Sunlight pierced the office windows the next morning, revealing dust motes drifting lazily through the air. Adam sat behind his imposing desk at Beaumont Innovations, but his mind wasn't on the spreadsheet laid out before him. He was thinking about Matthew's sleepy grin and Emily's wary smile as she let Adam cradle their son. This time, no meeting or crisis would keep him from leaving by mid-afternoon. He planned to see Emily and Matthew again, to keep the momentum of trust going strong. Yet as he scanned his emails, a creeping apprehension stirred in his chest. He hadn't heard from his father since the argument 2 days prior. Henry Beaumont was never the type to let things lie. As if on cue, the phone on Adam's desk buzzed. His assistant, Chris, spoke in a hushed tone. "Sir, we have a situation. The press is here, in the lobby." Adam's heart kicked into gear. "Which press?" "Several outlets. They say they received a tip that you—" Chris's voice faltered. "That you have a secret child. They want a statement." Adam closed his eyes, anger flaring. "Of course," he muttered. Who else would leak that but Henry, aiming to force Adam back into line? With a sigh, he pressed the intercom. "Keep them in the lobby. I'll handle this." He rose, grabbing his suit jacket. On his way out, he paused by the polished mirror near the door, gathering his composure. This was the storm he'd anticipated, but he wouldn't hide. He strode into the hallway, expression resolute, and took the private elevator to the main lobby. Outside the golden elevator doors, a cluster of reporters and flashing cameras stood near security. Guards held them back, but they clamored at the sight of Adam, voices overlapping. "Mr. Beaumont, is it true you have a 3-year-old child? Are you acknowledging paternity? Why keep it secret for so long?" Adam lifted a hand, gesturing for calm. "One question at a time," he said firmly. Despite his racing pulse, he kept his voice even. "Yes, I have recently learned that I do have a son, and I am choosing to be part of his life. I won't be making further personal comments." "Who's the mother?" demanded another voice, a camera phone angled at him. "Is she trying to extort you for money?" Adam's jaw tightened. Anger simmered at that insinuation. "She's someone I care about, and we're handling this privately. I ask for respect for my family." The journalists surged, shouting more questions, but Adam signaled the security team to lead them out. "There's nothing more to say," Adam insisted. "Please respect our privacy." As the reporters were ushered away, their voices still echoed. Rumors, speculation, innuendo. Adam turned, noticing employees staring from behind glass doors, wide-eyed. He felt a surge of protectiveness for Emily and Matthew. If the press was already sniffing around, how long before they found her address or cornered her outside the cafe? Storming back to the elevator, Adam pounded the button. His father had likely orchestrated this, or perhaps it was just the inevitable churn of gossip sparked by a single well-placed tip. Either way, he had to warn Emily. She needed to know that reporters might approach her. He also needed a strategy to protect them from the frenzy. Back in his office, Adam slammed the door behind him, frustration crackling in the air. Chris hovered, concern etched on his face. "I'm sorry, sir, they pushed their way in." "Security did their best, but—" "It's fine," Adam replied, loosening his tie with a jerky motion. "You did what you could." Then more calmly, "I'm leaving now, Chris. If any official statements are needed, direct them to our PR department. But no details about Emily or Matthew. Understood?" Chris nodded. "Understood." Adam grabbed his phone and headed out. The confrontation with reporters had only galvanized his need to see Emily. While in the car, he dialed her number. It rang a few times before she answered with a cautious, "Hello?" He forced a gentle tone. "Emily, it's me. I'm sorry to bother you, but something came up. The press showed up at my office." Her quick intake of breath revealed her fear. "The press? They found out already?" "Yes. Someone leaked it," he said grimly. "I'm so sorry, Em. They might try to find you or talk to you. I wanted to warn you." She was silent for a moment, likely absorbing the shock. "What do we do?" "We handle it calmly," he said, though his own adrenaline still raced. "Don't talk to them. Don't answer questions. I'll coordinate with my PR team and we'll figure out how to protect you and Matthew. Where are you now?" "I'm at the cafe. My shift ends soon," she replied shakily. "Stay inside until I get there," he suggested. "I'll come pick you two up, and we'll go somewhere safe to talk." Emily hesitated. Okay, I'll wait here. Let me ask my manager if I can leave a bit early. Matthew's at daycare right now, so I'll have to grab him too." Adam clenched his jaw, wishing he'd already arranged for more stable childcare. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't worry, we'll figure it out." They ended the call. Adam instructed his driver to hurry, eyes flicking anxiously over the passing cityscape. Just when things were starting to feel stable between them, the media frenzy threatened to upend it all. The thought of paparazzi ambushing Emily outside her workplace made his stomach turn. She'd endured enough already. Before long, they arrived at the cafe. Adam spotted a lone photographer lurking near a lamppost, camera at the ready. His driver parked discreetly a few doors down. Adam stepped out, adjusting his suit jacket, scanning for additional press. So far, it appeared only one had found this location. He entered the cafe. Inside, the atmosphere was subdued, a quiet lull before the dinner rush. Emily stood behind the counter, apron slightly askew, hands trembling as she served the last few customers. She caught Adam's eye and sent a relieved, nervous nod. The manager, noticing Adam's presence, whispered something to Emily, who quickly untied her apron and slipped from behind the counter. "Any trouble out there?" she asked in a hushed voice, stepping beside him. "A photographer lurking," Adam answered just as quietly. "Come on, let's get out before they multiply." She nodded, rummaging for her purse. The manager gave her an encouraging pat on the arm. Together, she and Adam stepped onto the sidewalk. The photographer snapped photos immediately, but Adam shielded Emily by stepping in front, ushering her toward the waiting car. They climbed in, locking the doors. "Where's Matthew?" Adam asked, breathing hard. "The daycare is 2 blocks away," Emily replied. "We can drive there." Adam tapped the divider. "James, circle to Redwood Street Daycare. Don't stop if you see reporters." "Yes, Mr. Beaumont," came the driver's professional tone. Emily clutched her purse, tension making her shoulders rigid. "They took pictures." "Oh, God, this is happening so fast. Will they show up at the daycare next?" Adam grimaced, hating how powerless she felt. "We won't let them near Matthew. Worst case, I can arrange private security, but I hope it won't go that far." She exhaled shakily. "Your father, do you think he did this?" Adam nodded once, jaw clenched. "It's highly likely. He wants to force me to back off. He believes if there's enough public outcry, I'll choose the company over you two." Adam's gaze met hers. "But that won't happen. I'm not that man anymore." Emily stared back, a flicker of relief and warmth crossing her features. "Thank you." Arriving at the daycare, Adam stepped out with Emily, scanning the area. No paparazzi in sight. He accompanied her inside, and she signed Matthew out. The toddler ran up with a grin, hugging Emily, then smiling at Adam. The tension in Adam's chest loosened slightly at the sight. No matter the external chaos, Matthew's simple joy felt like an anchor. They hurried back to the car, Matthew babbling about his day, oblivious to the seriousness of the adults' hushed conversation. Once the door shut behind them, Emily let out a long sigh. "I hate feeling like we're hiding," she murmured, "but I also hate the idea of being photographed everywhere." Adam nodded. "I understand. Let's go somewhere quiet. Maybe my condo, if you're comfortable with that. It has security. We can talk in peace, figure out next steps, or if you'd prefer a hotel." "Your condo is fine," she said softly, though she looked uncertain. "I just don't want Matthew to be overwhelmed. He's never been in such a fancy environment." Adam put a reassuring hand on her knee. "I'll make sure he's comfortable." He looked at Matthew, who was rolling a small toy car along the seat. "We'll make it fun, right, buddy?" Matthew looked up with a bright grin, nodding without comprehension. Emily managed a small laugh, then leaned her head back against the seat, eyes closing briefly as though absorbing the weight of everything happening. The car wove through traffic, eventually pulling into an underground parking entrance at Adam's luxury building. The tinted windows and secure garage offered respite from prying cameras. Attendants discreetly helped them to a private elevator. Emily's eyes flickered with trepidation as the elevator ascended, the polished chrome walls reflecting her anxious gaze. When the doors slid open, Adam guided them into his expansive penthouse, a minimalist space with sweeping views of the city skyline. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the sun dropping behind skyscrapers, painting the sky with molten oranges and pinks. The contrast between Emily's modest apartment and this grand living space was stark. Matthew gasped in delight at the view, pressing his little hands against the glass. "Look, Mom! So high!" Emily stepped closer to him, placing a steadying hand on Matthew's shoulder, then casting Adam an uncertain glance. "It's beautiful," she admitted. "You really live here alone?" Adam grimaced slightly. "Yes, it's been just me for years." A silence stretched. Emily seemed both awed and uncomfortable. Adam noticed how she kept Matthew close, as though worried he might break something in this pristine space. Gently, Adam approached. "You're safe here," he said, voice low. "Nobody can barge in, no cameras. We can just breathe for a moment." She nodded slowly, letting some tension slip from her shoulders. Matthew turned from the window, looking around curiously. "What's that?" he asked, pointing to a sleek sculpture on a side table. "That's just art," Adam said, chuckling. "We can move it if you're afraid he'll knock it over," he offered, catching Emily's worried expression. She let out a short laugh. "Probably best. He's a hurricane with breakables." Adam quickly moved the sculpture onto a high shelf. Then he gestured to a plush white sofa. "Sit, please. I'll grab us something to drink. Juice for Matthew?" She nodded, ushering the child over. Once they settled, Adam retreated to the open-plan kitchen area. He was hyper-aware of Emily glancing at the expensive appliances, the modern decor. In a different life, he might have given her a proud tour. Now he felt oddly sheepish about how lavish it all was, compared to her cramped apartment. He returned with water for Emily and a small glass of fruit juice for Matthew, who was wide-eyed, taking in every detail of the penthouse. "Look!" the boy exclaimed, pointing at the large TV embedded in the wall. "Mommy, it's so big!" Emily patted his hair. "Yes, it is," she said softly. Adam placed the drinks on a low coffee table, then sank into an armchair, trying to gauge Emily's reaction. He cleared his throat. "So, about the reporters. I have a PR team that can issue a statement, but we need to decide how much, if anything, we reveal about you and Matthew." Emily glanced at her son, who was preoccupied examining the sofa pillows. "I'm not comfortable with them showing pictures of Matthew or digging into our private lives," she said firmly. "He doesn't deserve that." Adam agreed wholeheartedly. "We can request privacy under the premise of protecting a minor, but the media is relentless. I can't promise they won't keep trying, especially if my father fans the flames." She pressed her lips together. "He really wants you to abandon us?" Adam's chest tightened. "He sees us as a threat to the brand, to the Beaumont empire. He thinks I should remain unencumbered. Obviously, I disagree." Tears shone in her eyes, but she blinked them back. "It's so unfair. Matthew's done nothing wrong. All we wanted was a quiet life, and now—" Adam moved to the sofa, gently clasping her hand. "I'll protect you," he vowed, voice trembling. "Even if it means defying my father, I'll stand by you two, publicly or privately. You choose." She exhaled, leaning her head against his shoulder in a rare display of vulnerability. He wrapped an arm around her, mindful of Matthew's presence. "We'll figure this out," he repeated, as if reassuring both her and himself. Matthew wandered over, climbing onto the couch and nestling between them. Adam's heart melted at how natural it felt, the three of them together, despite the swirl of threats and cameras beyond these walls. For a moment, he let himself imagine a future where this was normal. Shared dinners, bedtime stories, weekend outings, all without the fear of scandal. It was a precious vision, albeit fragile. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the penthouse lights automatically brightened. Emily let out a weary sigh. "What now?" Adam pressed a kiss to the top of Matthew's head, then looked at her with quiet determination. "Now, we plan carefully. We contact a lawyer or a public relations expert, outline boundaries for the press, and secure your home situation so they can't harass you. And, if you want, you two can stay here tonight, just to avoid going back out into potential paparazzi." She hesitated, scanning the opulent space. "Stay here? Adam, it's too much. I don't have clothes for Matthew. I can't just—" "We can buy anything you need." he said gently. It's just for a night, or however long you need to feel safe. Emily looked torn. She glanced at Matthew, who was happily resting his head on Adam's arm, oblivious to adult worries. Finally, she nodded. All right, but just for tonight, I'll need to get my things eventually. Adam nodded, relief and gratitude filling his chest. Thank you, he whispered. I'll make sure you're comfortable. They fell into a thoughtful silence, overshadowed by the knowledge that the world outside was watching. But here, in the lofty penthouse, they had a brief sanctuary. Matthew yawned, curling closer to Adam. Emily's shoulders relaxed an inch, as if letting herself trust Adam's protection for the moment. He caught her gaze, silently promising that, come what may, media storms, paternal disapproval, or corporate backlash, he wouldn't abandon them again. The vow settled in his heart like a steady drumbeat, forging the next chapter of their tenuous reunion. The penthouse lights glowed softly against the sweeping night sky, revealing a city shimmering far below. In the living area, Adam brought blankets and pillows, creating an impromptu bed on one of the large couches. He wanted Emily and Matthew to have the privacy of the guest suite, but Emily insisted they'd be okay in the common area, closer to an exit if they needed it. There was no talking her out of that subtle protective instinct. Matthew, half awake from the car ride and excitement, was now busy exploring the living room's corners. He pressed his nose against the towering windows, gazing at the sparkling skyline with awe. "Mommy, look at all the lights," he whispered, voice filled with wonder. Emily sat on the couch, fiddling with the edges of a borrowed sweater Adam had found for her. She still wore her work slacks, and her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. Even in the midst of stress and exhaustion, Adam couldn't help but notice the curve of her cheek and the determined set of her jaw, reminders of the strong woman she'd had to become, raising Matthew on her own. Adam crouched by a built-in cupboard. "There are extra linens here," he said gently. "And a few pillows, too, if you need more." She forced a small smile. "Thank you. This is more than enough." He looked at her, wanting to say something reassuring, but the magnitude of the day's events seemed to knot his words. Instead, he stood and approached Matthew, whose breath was fogging up the glass. "Careful there, buddy," he teased softly. "We don't want your fingerprints to make the windows so dirty we can't see out." Matthew giggled, turning to peer up at Adam. "Dad, can we see the cars down there?" Adam scooped the boy into his arms, pressing a button on the wall that dimmed the overhead lights. Now the city lights below took center stage, and from this vantage point, headlights moved in tiny lines. "See those?" Adam murmured, pointing. "That's the highway. The cars look so small from up here, like toy cars." Emily stood, coming near the window. She let out a sound of surprise at the breathtaking view. On a normal day, she'd never imagined being in a place like this, multi-million-dollar high-rise, the kind of world that once felt untouchable. Matthew gasped in her ear, excited by the moving lights. For a moment, the three of them gazed out together, an unexpected family portrait silhouetted against the glass. Adam felt a twist in his chest, a strange mix of contentment and longing. If only they could have had these moments years earlier, away from all the complications and heartbreak. Eventually, Matthew rubbed his eyes. Emily ran a hand over the child's hair. "Time for bed, sweet boy," she said, her tone gentle but firm. He pouted half-heartedly, then yawned. "Okay, Mommy." Adam carried him over to the couch, where they'd set up a cozy nest of blankets. Emily knelt to remove Matthew's shoes. She noticed how worn they were, slightly too small. A pang of guilt struck Adam again, remembering how easily he could have provided new ones if only he'd known. But instead of dwelling on regret, he focused on the future. He could fix this now. Matthew curled under the covers and Adam asked in a low whisper, "Do you want me to read something? I can see if I have any books here, or—" "He's probably too tired," Emily said. He's had a lot of stimulation. The little boy tugged at Adam's sleeve anyway. "Stay," he murmured, fighting sleep. Adam's heart squeezed. "All right, buddy," he whispered, kneeling by the makeshift bed. Emily watched quietly from the side, her eyes glistening. She mouthed a thank you that Adam answered with a faint nod. For a few minutes, they soothed Matthew with soft words. Emily hummed a lullaby under her breath. Eventually, the child's eyelids fluttered, and he drifted off, his small hand still latched onto Adam's fingers. Once his grip relaxed, Adam gently laid the hand on the blanket and stood, exhaling. Emily rose too, pulling Adam a few steps away so Matthew wouldn't hear their conversation if he stirred. "He's so attached to you already," she whispered, voice thick with emotion. "I was worried it would confuse him having you appear so suddenly, but he's so happy." Adam bit the inside of his cheek, wrestling with the regret of missing those early years. Children sense more than we realize. Maybe he needed a father more than he knew. She nodded, swallowing. "We both needed you," she said quietly, then immediately dropped her gaze, as though revealing too much. Adam's hand found hers, giving a gentle squeeze. "And I need both of you, more than anything." Silence wrapped around them. The hush in the vast penthouse felt almost sacred. Emily finally said, "So, what's next? I mean, in terms of the press or your father? I can't live like this, constantly afraid of cameras ambushing me at the cafe or daycare." Adam ran a hand through his hair. "We'll do a few things. First, I'll set up official security to keep reporters at a distance, someone discreet to escort you until the frenzy dies down. Then I'll have my PR team issue a clear statement, emphasizing that I'm simply embracing my responsibility as a father and we request privacy for a minor. Most reputable outlets will back off after that, or at least be less aggressive." She nodded thoughtfully, a line of worry between her brows. "And your father? Will he be content now that this is public? Or—" Adam grimaced. "He'll be furious. He wants me to spin the story, maybe deny paternity or claim some false arrangement, but I'm not going to do that. If he escalates, I'll deal with it, legally if necessary." Her eyes widened. "Legally? Would you really take this to court against your own father?" Adam let out a shaky breath. The possibility hung in the air, heavy. "I hope it doesn't come to that. But if he tries to sabotage my position or threaten custody, I won't fold. I won't let him keep me from Matthew." The fierce protectiveness in his voice reassured her. She stepped closer, pressing her forehead to his shoulder for a moment, a gesture of trust and exhaustion. He wrapped an arm around her, feeling her shake slightly as she fought back tears. A few seconds later, she pulled away, eyes flicking to the sleeping child. "I should rest too. It's been a long day. You must be exhausted." Adam nodded, though he felt a surge of warmth at her closeness. "I'll be in my room, across the hall. If you need anything, food, water, just let me know. I'll keep the door open." She dipped her head gratefully, stifling another wave of emotion. "Thank you." With Matthew napping on the couch, Emily decided to settle in an armchair nearby, wanting to stay within reach if he woke. Adam lingered a moment, hesitant to break the fragile calm, but he sensed her need for space and rest. So he quietly made his way down the hallway to his own suite. In his private room, usually a sanctuary of modern design and cold efficiency, Adam felt restless. He changed into more comfortable clothes, a simple t-shirt and lounge pants, yet lying on his king-sized bed, staring at the ceiling, did nothing to ease the knot in his stomach. So much was in motion. So many challenges threatened this precious connection with Emily and Matthew. Mid-thought, a text buzzed on his phone. His heart clenched, expecting some urgent message from the PR department or a confrontation from his father. Instead, it was from Miranda, the CFO who'd always been one of the few in the company he could trust. Adam. Hearing rumors swirling in the office about you having a child. Press is sniffing around. Just wanted to let you know, the board is concerned, but I've assured them your personal life won't derail business. Let me know if you need backup." He exhaled, relief that at least one ally was in his corner. Typing quickly, he replied, "Thanks, Miranda. Appreciate your help. I'll handle the press. Business as usual tomorrow." His fingers hovered, then he added, "Family first," and hit send. Setting the phone aside, Adam closed his eyes, letting exhaustion seep in. He forced himself to breathe slowly. Scenes of the day replayed. The paparazzi confrontation, whisking Emily away, seeing the wonder on Matthew's face at the penthouse view. If it had to be them against the world, Adam decided, so be it. He'd fight for that child and the woman he'd never truly stopped loving. A gentle knock sounded on the open door. Adam sat up, heart quickening. Emily peeked inside hesitantly. "Hey," she murmured, stepping over the threshold. "Sorry to disturb you. Matthew's fine, still asleep. I can't rest. My mind's racing." Adam stood. "Come in. Are you okay?" She shrugged, crossing her arms defensively. "I feel guilty for dragging you into this media circus. I know it's not me who leaked it, but if you lose your position or something—" Adam placed a hand on her shoulder. It's not your fault. And I don't care about the position if it means shutting you and Matthew out again. I'll manage. We'll manage." She glanced around the spacious suite, taking in the minimalist gray palette. "Your life is so big," she breathed, "and ours is so small. I don't want to be swallowed up by it, or overshadowed by your father's demands." His chest ached. "I promise I won't let that happen. Whether we stay in my world or find a new path, we'll do it together. I can scale back. I can reorder priorities. Believe me, I'm ready to." She studied his face, searching for sincerity. Whatever she saw there must have reassured her, because she nodded slowly. "I guess time will tell," she whispered. "But for now, I'm grateful you stood up for us." Adam's heart glowed. He leaned forward and very softly pressed a kiss to her temple. She closed her eyes at the contact, a small sigh escaping her lips, as if letting herself lean into him for once. Then she opened them, stepping back, a bittersweet smile on her face. "I'll let you sleep," she said. "Matthew might wake soon, so I'll be with him." "All right," Adam answered gently. "If you need anything or just want to talk, I'm here." She managed a small nod before turning and slipping out of the room. The quiet hush returned. Adam exhaled, feeling equal parts longing and relief. She was letting him in, inch by inch, but as she'd said, time would tell if they could truly heal and forge a new life. He laid back down, this time calmer, the memory of her presence a comforting balm. Tomorrow the world might come at them with tabloids and corporate drama, but they had each other. That thought carried him into a fitful but hopeful sleep, determined that the next day's dawn would find him ready to protect what he'd almost lost again. Sunrise crept into the penthouse, its pale light sliding across the floor until it touched the makeshift bed in the living area. Emily stirred, blinking at the unfamiliar surroundings. For a moment she couldn't remember where she was, but then she caught sight of Matthew dozing snugly under the blankets, and the previous day's events rushed back. Her gaze shifted across the luxurious space, a stark contrast to the cramped apartment she was used to. She rose carefully so as not to wake Matthew and smoothed down her hair. The entire penthouse was quiet. No footsteps echoed on the marble floors, no distant hum of conversation. Glancing toward the hallway, she debated checking on Adam, but after the emotional roller coaster they'd shared, she decided to let him sleep a bit longer. Her attempt at discreet movement ended when Matthew rolled over, half opening his eyes. "Mommy?" he mumbled, rubbing them. "Good morning, sweet boy," she said softly. "Did you sleep well?" Matthew peered around, momentarily confused by the opulent surroundings. Then he remembered the big windows and the newness of it all. "We're still at Dad's house?" Emily nodded. She brushed curls off his forehead. "Yes. Let's be quiet so he can rest." Matthew yawned, then pushed aside the blankets. "I'm hungry." With a gentle laugh, she helped him to his feet. "Let's see if there's something we can make." She didn't want to rummage through Adam's kitchen without permission, but a quick peek last night had shown it to be fully stocked, probably by a housekeeper or service Adam employed. Together, mother and son tiptoed toward the open-concept kitchen. The fridge was indeed filled with groceries, many of them fresh produce and items Emily wouldn't normally afford. She tried not to gape as she pulled out eggs and milk, setting them on a pristine countertop. Matthew stood on tiptoe, eyeing everything curiously. "Mommy, can we have pancakes?" he asked, spotting a bag of flour in a lower cupboard. Emily hesitated. She loved the idea but worried about imposing. "Maybe," she whispered. "Let me see if I can find a pan that won't destroy this fancy stove." While she opened drawers in search of basic utensils, a drowsy voice came from behind. "You can destroy whatever you want," Adam joked, stepping forward in pajama pants and a simple t-shirt. His hair was slightly messy, giving him a softer look than his usual corporate polish. "Make yourselves at home." Matthew's face lit up at the sight of him. "Dad," he chirped. "We want pancakes. Mommy's looking for stuff." Adam chuckled, patting across the marble. "Pancakes sound like a great idea." He caught Emily's wary expression. "Seriously, use anything. I promise I won't mind." "All right," she conceded. "I'll do my best. But if the fire alarm goes off, we'll blame you." There was a playful spark in her tone that made him smile. They worked together, rummaging through cupboards until they located a mixing bowl and spatula. Emily whisked batter, while Adam supervised Matthew carefully cracking eggs, an operation that ended with a chunk of shell in the batter, much to the child's giggling delight. The tension from the previous day eased in the small bustle of a simple family task. Soon, the kitchen filled with the aroma of sizzling pancakes. Emily expertly flipped them on a hot griddle, while Adam set plates on the island's sleek surface. Matthew's eyes grew wide at each fluffy round that emerged, golden and steamy. "Mommy's the best pancake maker," Matthew declared, making her blush. Adam gently squeezed her shoulder. "I believe it." With a small laugh, Emily slid the final pancake onto a plate. "Done. Now we just need some syrup, if you have any." "Cupboard next to the fridge, top shelf," Adam said promptly. He'd taken note of the pantry's layout from his housekeeper's inventory list. They brought the plates to the dining nook, a corner with floor-to-ceiling windows. Morning light spilled across the table, illuminating the small feast. Adam helped Matthew climb onto a tall chair, and Emily sat across from him, stifling a pang of disbelief that she was here, eating pancakes in Adam Beaumont's penthouse as a family. Conversation flowed naturally, centered on Matthew, how he liked daycare, what cartoons he watched, and the possibility of him starting a children's sports class in the future. Adam listened intently, occasionally offering suggestions or questions. Emily saw the earnest desire in his eyes, a yearning to be part of every detail. Halfway through breakfast, Adam's phone vibrated on the counter. He glanced at it and grimaced. "It's my father," he murmured. Emily tensed, setting down her fork. Matthew, busy munching, didn't notice the shift in atmosphere. Adam stood and walked a few steps away, answering quietly. She watched his posture stiffen, hearing only his side of the conversation. "I won't do that!" Adam snapped at one point, voice low but heated. "I'm not denying anything." A pause. Another attempt from Henry Beaumont, no doubt. Adam exhaled, frustration evident in every line of his body. "No, father, you don't get to order me around this time," he hissed. "If you release more rumors, you'll only damage your own reputation." Then, without waiting for a reply, he ended the call. He returned face taut. He insists I do a quick press conference to spin the story, Adam said, forcing calm. He claims if I don't, certain business partners might back away. Emily's face paled. Will that harm your position as CEO? I don't want you to lose everything. Adam shook his head, jaw set. The board might get restless, but I can handle it. I'd rather face a little corporate backlash than throw you and Matthew under the bus. I told my father that if he tries to smear you publicly, we'll respond with legal action. She let out a trembling breath. I never wanted a war in your family, Adam. He touched her arm gently. You're not causing this. My father is, because he refuses to accept the truth. A fragile silence settled. Then Matthew piped up, Dad, can we have more pancakes? He was oblivious to the tension, and that innocence reminded both adults of their priorities. Of course, buddy, Adam said, giving the child a warm smile. There should be one more left on the stove. He busied himself fetching the last pancake, placing it on Matthew's plate. When breakfast wound down, Emily insisted on clearing dishes. Adam tried to help, but she waved him away. I can wash them. It's the least I can do. He nodded, turning to Matthew, who was yawning again. How about we watch a cartoon? I think I have a streaming service with kids' shows. Matthew agreed, so Adam guided him to a plush rug in the living area. Within moments, bright characters danced across the enormous TV screen, capturing the boy's attention. Emily watched from the kitchen, the scene strangely domestic and comforting despite the turmoil swirling outside. After the last dish was washed, she joined Adam on the sofa, where he was observing Matthew with a thoughtful air. She lowered her voice. So what's our next step? Do we go home? Adam studied her, then glanced at Matthew. You're welcome to stay another night until we have a plan for dealing with the reporters, but I won't force you. If you prefer your apartment, I can arrange security outside your door. Emily bit her lip. I hate the idea of strangers hovering, but maybe it's safer for Matthew's sake. We do need to pick up more clothes and supplies if we stay longer. He nodded, ready to support whichever choice she made. Let's do this. I'll drive you over. We'll see what it looks like, and if the press is swarming, we can come right back here. If not, you can grab what you need. She mulled it over. That's probably best. Thank you. Matthew, sensing adult discussion, wandered over. Are we leaving? He asked, hugging Bun Bun. Just for a bit, Emily reassured him. But we'll see how it goes, okay? The child nodded, eyes drifting between them. Adam felt a pang, how quickly Matthew adapted to change. He deserved stability. They all did. Adam vowed silently to find a way to give that to him. They packed up. Emily stuffed a spare outfit for Matthew into her purse, and Adam put on his more formal attire, anticipating any cameras. Once ready, they took the elevator to the secure garage. A glimmer of dread passed through Emily, but Adam gently squeezed her hand, reminding her she wasn't alone. In the car, he opened his phone to see a flood of social media mentions and news blurbs. The rumored secret child of Adam Beaumont was trending. He sighed, showing Emily. She winced, reading a headline that questioned her motives. This is so invasive, she whispered. We'll manage, he said grimly, instructing the driver to head toward her neighborhood. Let them speculate. All that matters is we know the truth. They arrived to a calmer scene than expected. Just a single journalist car parked across the street. Adam discreetly guided Emily and Matthew inside the building. The reporter tried to follow, snapping a few photos, but one of Adam's newly hired security guards blocked the entrance. Safe within the lobby, Emily released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Let's make it quick, Adam said gently, ensuring Matthew stayed between them as they headed upstairs. In the apartment, Emily gathered a few changes of clothes, important documents, and some of Matthew's favorite toys. Adam stood in the living room, heart heavy as he witnessed once again how modest and worn her living conditions were. He quietly made a mental note. She deserved so much more. She deserved peace. By the time they emerged downstairs, the same reporter was still lurking, camera poised. Another flash of photos as Adam shielded Emily, who hid Matthew's face in her shoulder. Adam's jaw tightened. He needed to finalize protective measures soon. They re-entered the car, Emily visibly shaken. Matthew clung to his mother, uncertain why the strangers wanted pictures of them. Adam reached over, lightly stroking the boy's back. "We'll go back to my place, okay? Get settled, make dinner together, or order something. We'll figure out the rest, day by day." Emily looked at him, eyes reflecting fatigue and gratitude. She squeezed his hand. "Thank you, Adam," she said softly, "for being here." He leaned in, pressing a tender kiss to her forehead, ignoring the way the driver politely averted his gaze. "I wouldn't be anywhere else," he murmured. Matthew nestled between them, lulled by their gentle closeness. As the car rolled onto the main road, the city rose around them, beautiful and challenging, full of eyes that wanted a piece of their story. But inside this vehicle, and within the protective walls of Adam's penthouse, they were forging a path forward, a father claiming his rightful place, a mother who refused to abandon her pride, and a little boy whose laughter was the glue stitching them together. They had miles of obstacles ahead, from potential lawsuits to corporate battles, yet for now, they were united. With each passing streetlight, Adam's resolve grew stronger. He couldn't undo the lost years, but he could shape the years to come. Emily, exhausted and leaning on Adam's shoulder, closed her eyes. Matthew dozed off in her lap, and Adam gently circled an arm around them both. No matter what storms still loomed, this moment confirmed that they were, at last, a family, imperfect, tested by fate, but stepping forward together into an uncertain future, bound by love that refused to be forgotten. So, we reach the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave us a thumbs up. I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments. Your support and kind words are the best reward for the effort we put into bringing you these stories. Knowing we can be part of your day and hopefully share reflections that help us all grow as human beings is incredibly gratifying. Finally, if you haven't yet, I invite you to subscribe to Narrated Words and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our tales. You can also share them with the people you care about. Thank you for being here, and blessings to you all. If you enjoyed this story, don't miss the next one. Just click on the screen.